पाकिस्तान में दहशतगर्दी की लहर चल पड़ी। पिछले 48-72 घंटों के अंदर तकरीबन 50 के करीब हमले, दर्जनों के हिसाब से लोग जाँ बहक। और पाकिस्तान ने इल्जाम लगाया है अफगानिस्तान और इंडिया में मौजूद अनासिर के ऊपर, बलोचिस्तान के ऊपर और केपी के अंदर। हकीकत क्या है? Where does the situation stand? What is Afghanistan's position in all of this? To get a better idea, I'm joined once again by a friend of the show, Sangar Paykhar, who is also the co-host of the Afghan Eye Podcast. Thank you so much for speaking to us and joining us, Sangar. We spoke 1 year ago, I think, and we were trying to make sense of what had happened after the Pakistan elections, the theft of the people's mandate, the crushing of dissent. 1 year later, it seems it's gone from bad to worse. How do you see the situation first and foremost in Pakistan, in Balochistan, and in KP province of Pakistan, for example?
Well, thank you for having me again, Ali. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. After our conversation over a year ago, what I have been observing as an Afghan observer of Pakistan is indeed a deterioration of situation in Pakistan, which is very concerning for a fragile economy and fragile state of reconstruction that is going on in Afghanistan. And this is particularly concerning because, there is a relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan, similar to where I am currently at in the Netherlands, the relationship between Germany and the Netherlands. They say if Germany sneezes, the Netherlands catches a fever or even faces floods. So similarly, if situation deteriorates in Pakistan, it has very severe impacts for Afghanistan because both nations economically, culturally, and historically are tied to each other. And this is why for us as Afghan observers, the current rate of decline in security in Pakistan is something that we are very worried about. And especially in the last 48 hours, what we have seen is particularly shocking to see something happen so rapidly and escalate so rapidly in a region that is, as you also have described in your previous episode, as a very restive area. But still, dozens of people have been killed. And this is why we think that this situation will have its impacts on Afghanistan as well.
Do you see the situation in Pakistan, you have seen it deteriorate, but Pakistan finds itself on the number 2 position in the global terrorism index. Afghanistan has fallen down. The number of attacks happening in Afghanistan have fallen down. So do you think Afghanistan becomes an easy scapegoat for Pakistan's own internal failures? Or is there something more to it? Are these attacks, or are these, especially the TTP attacks from KP, are they originating from Afghanistan?
Well, according to the global terrorism index, there are 1,099 attacks in Pakistan in 2024. And indeed, that's significantly more than what we experienced in Afghanistan. Now, obviously, Afghanistan is not like it was in 2021 or before that. However, whether those attacks are directly related to Afghanistan in the sense that they originate from Afghanistan, this is an often repeated claim by the establishment in Pakistan. And I have said this on many occasions, on many episodes of the Afghan Eye. I have been very vocal about this. You see any kind of activity by militants or any kind of external support for any militancy inside Pakistan needs to be evaluated according to strategic interests of the regional actors. Now, let's just assume if the TTP was indeed supported or facilitated by the current authorities in Afghanistan, it means that by instigating conflict in Afghanistan, they are burning bridges. They are harming themselves. They are burning their own hands, because the more situation escalates in Pakistan, the worse it becomes for Afghanistan, because we depend on stability of the situation in Pakistan, because it's our gateway to the Indian Ocean, and it's also a significant trade partner for Afghanistan. So currently, Afghanistan, the current government, is trying to establish economic ties with Central Asia, with Iran, with the Gulf region, and we simply cannot afford to have as our biggest neighbor a country that has 1,099 terrorist attacks in a year. This is going to affect Afghan growth and development. And why would Afghan authorities facilitate something that has such a negative impact on their own economy, on their own security, on the well-being of people in Afghanistan? So there is no logic behind this, and maybe the people who are making such claims, maybe they say, well, the people in Afghanistan are illogical, they are irrational, and that's why they're doing this. And this is something we often see. People have always the tendency to portray the opposite side as irrational or illogical. But in the analysis of regional politics and regional security, we cannot afford to just have a very simplistic or a very childish assumption about our neighbors, about other actors in the region. So we have to be rational, and we have to assume that all actors act to a certain degree rationally. And rationally, there is absolutely no benefit for Afghanistan to cause any kind of harm to Pakistan, its people, its economy, and its security.
Rationality can be specific to a situation, and the rationale that someone in a under siege or besieged situation might find themselves in, like the Pakistani military establishment, will be different from the rationale of someone who's thinking along different lines, who isn't under siege. And the reason I raise this, and I want your response to this, in the past few months we've seen a major attack happen in Afghanistan, in which the uncle of the Sirajuddin Haqqani, Khalilur Rahman Haqqani, was killed in a suicide attack in Kabul. We've seen other attacks by Pakistanis in Afghanistan using gunship helicopters, their fighter jets, and so on and so forth. And we have heard from the Afghan Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid saying that the Daesh Khorasan, or ISIS case, supposedly has training camps set up by the Pakistan military in Balochistan. So there is a clear and present, or at least do the Afghan Taliban see Pakistan as a clear and present threat to them and their country?
Well, apart from the official statements that you clearly have been analyzing yourself, we've seen Zabiullah Mujahid make numerous statements. Most recently, the spokesman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Abdul Qahar Balkhi, has rejected any connection of Afghanistan with the attacks in Balochistan. But there are also local military analysts. There are also sources within the current government in the security apparatus in Afghanistan. And what they have been saying, and especially in the last year, since the situation has significantly deteriorated, is that Pakistan may seem to be trying to, or at least the Pakistani military is trying to portray Afghanistan as a major security threat for the region. And this is how they may want to try to convince the Americans to get involved in Afghanistan again, and start some kind of military operation in Afghanistan again, because that would benefit the military in Pakistan, because they can improve their relationship with America, maybe receive grants, support, any kind of help that would help them to get out of current economic and political quagmire in Pakistan.
Well, that's what they're claiming with the whole Sharifullah extradition, this ISIS-K alleged planners, one of the planners of the Abbey Gate bombing, and that was supposed to be a carrot. Something happened, he went there, and it turned out that this guy was a low-level operative to begin with.
Exactly. And even American media reported in 2023 that the actual mastermind of that attack was killed in Afghanistan by the security forces of the Afghan government. And as I was saying, I don't think that in Pakistan there is a clear and overt agenda that is stated, like, we want to destabilize Afghanistan in order to get America involved again. However, this is assumed by analysts in Afghanistan, people who work for example, the security services in Afghanistan. We see articles being published by Al-Mirsad, which is a media outlet very closely related to the security forces in Afghanistan. And they basically continue to repeat the same point. They accuse Pakistan of deliberately trying to portray Afghanistan as a hub for terrorism so that they can get the West, the Americans, involved in Afghanistan again. And what you have mentioned earlier, that Zabiullah Mujahid has stated that there is a training camp in Mastung, Balochistan, where ISKP is based. You see, the Taliban were the guerrilla movement that sought refuge in Pakistan, in Balochistan, in the tribal area for decades. So they know Pakistan very well. So suppose if there is any kind of activity in Pakistan, any kind of suspicious activity, the Taliban have lived there for decades, or they have ties with people in Pakistan for decades. So if they make such a claim that there is a terrorist camp in Pakistan that is being used against Afghanistan, I wouldn't just assume that that's a fabrication. There may be some truth to it. And this is why this is something that needs to be examined. Of course, under current circumstances, with the restrictions in Pakistan on media and journalists in general, I don't think that independent journalists can go and investigate this matter. However, this does pose a major risk for the region to that is something that needs to be investigated, because if it is proven that Pakistan does facilitate any kind of militant organization in Pakistan that conducts attacks in Afghanistan, then we can say that Pakistan is basically the Pakistani military is using the same agenda it used in the past when the Taliban were the opposition or the militant group, and now they're using ISKP against the Taliban. Of course, this needs to be proven.
Yeah, that's the allegation. And the counterpoint to this could be that if you look at Balochistan, there is no writ. The Pakistani state has lost, practically all control. And after that train hijacking and the counter-terrorism or countermeasures that were taken, you also had this attack in Noshki now, where security forces have been targeted and killed. You have attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where security forces are targeted in Bannu and elsewhere. You've got the siege going on in Parachinar, Kurram, which borders Afghanistan. So it's a very complicated and complex situation. And instead of something nefarious, because nobody knows what is happening or who is operating who, so they're just firing everywhere, or firing blanks in the air, hoping that it'll hit something. Going back to Afghanistan, what is the situation in Afghanistan? It's almost It's 4 years. We're approaching 4 years since the Taliban came to power. There were rumors circulating, Afghanistan International, other outlets backed by the Americans, for example, that there's a split in the Taliban leadership, that Sirajuddin Haqqani is not on good terms with the Kandahar Shura and so on and so forth. So what's going on inside Afghanistan and Afghanistan Taliban leadership at the moment, Sangar?
The whole division between the Haqqanis and the Kandaharis, it's something that is often said by outsiders, but the reality is much more complex. So the division between different different elements within the Taliban movement is not strictly Kandahar and the rest, or Haqqanis and the rest. It's more complexer than that. And it's basically something that is very logical and very simple to explain. You have a movement that exists now for about 30 years. Taliban as a movement exists for 30 years. While they are the only political armed group in Afghan modern history that has remained united under very difficult circumstances, it is still a human organization, which means there are different people with different ideas and different perspectives on matters. And they have also different ideas about policy, whether it's internal affairs of Afghanistan or regional affairs. So naturally, they disagree with each other. There are huge disagreements on various matters. And these disagreements also emerge in the media. For example, there are many leaders within the Taliban who are outspoken proponents of girls' education, while the senior leadership have expressed that they want to limit education for women. So there are also other matters on which they disagree with each other. However, the way these disagreements are then blown out of proportion, especially in media, foreign media, you said American-backed media, or maybe in Pakistani media, it's just it makes no sense, because if there is such a deep-rooted disagreement that they are at odds with each other, or someone is being deposed or anything of that nature, then you would sense that kind of tension in Afghanistan. In reality, we see that in Afghanistan, the security situation, apart from some major attacks like the assassination of a minister, we don't see major security tensions. We don't see a situation where there are different armed factions like it used to be during the American occupation. During the American occupation, you had different warlords from different regions of Afghanistan who had their own power bases, and they would compete with each other. There were sometimes even skirmishes between police officers and army and other security forces. That kind of instability with different warlords, different figures, we don't see that in the last 3.5 years in Afghanistan, because while they have their very serious disagreements on policy, on various issues, the level of disagreement has not reached that kind of tension that they would depose one and do any kind of harm to one another. We see regularly the Amir who is in Kandahar replacing ministers, deputy ministers, chiefs of military garrisons, governors, all kinds of significant figures are being constantly replaced and put in different positions. Some people go from a simple district governor to a deputy minister, or vice versa. You don't see anyone making any fuss about it, because they have their disagreements, but the system functions to a certain degree in the way that it does right now. So this is why when I see those rumors, when I see those claims, spectacular claims about disagreements, or that the Haqqanis have a problem with the Kandaharis, in reality, nothing of that sort is observed in Afghanistan.
Or the Haqqanis have something with Mullah Yaqub, like a beef with Mullah Yaqub, or these rumors.
Well, from the people who have met them personally on many occasions, what I've heard is that they basically, after the working day finishes, they often go to each other's houses and have dinner. Especially the younger generation of the Taliban, so the people who are between the age of 20 and 35, 40, they are the younger generation, not the senior ones who are above 50 people. That's a senior category. But Haqqanis, Mullah Yaqub, and many other of these people, they are basically people from same generation, same experience. They have a lot in common with each other, and the fact that one is from Kandahar and the other one is from Paktia, those matters are not really the issues that course,
But there are, as you were mentioning though, Sangar, there are these interest groups within the Taliban, right? Some factions at the time have origins or roots in Pakistan. For example,
yes.
Darul Uloom Haqqaniya was a feeder for the Taliban leadership and the Taliban ranks. And we also saw people from Darul Uloom Haqqaniya operate after the Americans left. Then you have factions that were close to Iran, for example. You had certain leaders which were close to Iran, had those links, had those contacts. With the current situation, with Pakistan now deporting in mass
Yes.
Afghan nationals or threatening to deport Afghan nationals, the KPCM has said, I'm not going to do that. You know, they're also humans, they also deserve a chance. There seems to be a hardening of these positions. The Pakistanis, it seems, want even stricter measures, the Pakistani leadership, because it's lost a lot of its ability and its capacity inside the country. So it wants to show this force by pushing the Afghans back. It opens up opportunities for Iran and for India. In fact, in the past month or so, we've seen India and Afghanistan, the Afghan Taliban, try to reach some sort of diplomatic rapprochement. The Afghan embassy in Delhi, for example, restarting that, all of these things fall in line. Reciprocal measures in Kabul for Indian diplomats and their foreign service. So, do we see then the Afghan Taliban evolving and then breaking out of its mold of Pakistan, or those roots and those groups are now being sidelined, and maybe this is what's playing out in the Afghan Taliban leadership?
That it's a very interesting question, the role of India in this whole situation. You see, India is not directly a neighbor of Afghanistan, so we don't share a border with India. However, India is a very significant regional actor. And the recent elections in United States, especially with figures like Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel and other figures in the inner circle of Donald Trump, reveal that there is a very strong Hindu or a Hindu nationalist or Indian lobby surrounding the current administration in Washington. Now, this is significant also for our region because India is a regional competitor for China, and therefore it is also an actor that can act in the region on behalf of United States. So any kind of rapprochement between Afghanistan and India is also a, how do you say, second level rapprochement with United States, because India can be a very significant and a key actor representing the interests of United States in the region. Now, why is this important for Pakistan? Pakistan has the longest stretch of land sharing with Afghanistan, the Durand Line. And naturally, the key actor in Afghan politics needs to be Pakistan because it's a very powerful regional actor. But after the establishment of the emirate in 2021, the Taliban have tried to escape from the control of Pakistan by establishing economic and political and diplomatic ties with Iran, with Central Asian republics, with Russia, and with India. Well, if the relationship with India becomes a matter of concern for Pakistan, the logical step for Pakistan would be to make any effort to improve its ties with Afghanistan. But the more the relationship with Pakistan deteriorates, the more the government in Afghanistan is forced to seek better ties with India. So this is a very precarious situation for Pakistan, because the more Pakistan antagonizes Kabul, the more Kabul is forced to seek any kind of support and help from India. And I see that this is a matter of concern for analysts in Pakistan, because they see this whole conspiracy between Afghanistan and India against Pakistan. But this situation in reality is a creation of the Pakistani establishment. like Afghanistan has no interest to be a opponent of Pakistan or India for that matter. But if Pakistan pushes Afghanistan into a corner, then Afghanistan has no other choice but to seek better connection, better ties with India.
Are we finally, in your opinion, are we moving towards some sort of war between Afghanistan, the Afghan Taliban, and the Pakistan security forces?
If you speak to figures within the defense department in Afghanistan, especially after the recent skirmishes at Torkham and other significant attacks by Pakistani gunships on some areas in eastern Afghanistan, they all say that we are not in position to seek any kind of armed conflict with anyone, not even inside Afghanistan with other groups, because simply said there are no other groups. But if there were any kind of faction that would pose a security threat for the current government, they do not favor any kind of conflict, because Afghanistan is still recovering from wounds of 40 years of war. Under current circumstances, Afghanistan cannot afford to start and wage another war. We have many economic problems. Security problems have maybe improved, but war has its lasting effect. Afghanistan needs another 100 years to recover from the conflict. And this is why I don't think that Afghanistan would do anything to start a war with Pakistan. However, if the Pakistani military needs a war in order to receive support from United States, because simply said, a garrison state that they have created depends on eternal armed conflict. If they need a war in Afghanistan, well, they can have it. Like the people who are in the current security forces in Afghanistan, in its defense department and other departments, they all say that we would never want to wage another war. But if Pakistan does decide to instigate another conflict, we have made all the preparation needed. So they are prepared, but it's not something that the Afghans really want.
Thank you so much, Sangar Paykhar, joining us on this very important issue between Afghanistan and Pakistan and the region, actually, because as we see, it's imploding. Pakistan is imploding security-wise, and that is creating that is creating a lot of headaches for all its neighbors, including Afghanistan. Thank you so much, Sangar. I hope we can speak soon again. तो ये था आपके सामने नाजरीन सिचुएशन अफगानिस्तान के अंदर जो हो रही है. संगार हमें बता रहे थे कि वहाँ पे मौक़िफ़ जो है अफ़गान तालिबान का वो बहुत मुख्तलिफ है. वो चाहते हैं डेवलपमेंट करना, वो चाहते हैं कि उनकी इकॉनमी बेहतर हो और चाहते हैं कि पूरी रीजन के अंदर उनकी रिलेशनशिप्स बेहतर हों, बेहतरी की तरफ जाएं. बट ऑन दी अदर हैंड दूसरी जानिब आपके पास पाकिस्तानी एक हुकूमत है, पाकिस्तानी फोर्सेस हैं जो अपने आप को अपने अंदर जो हालात हैं उनको काबू करने में नाकाम रही हैं और इसकी वजह से स्पिल ओवर इफेक्ट के खदशात मौजूद हैं अफगानिस्तान में, ईरान में, इंडिया में. अगर ये चीज़ और बिगड़ती है पाकिस्तान के बलूचिस्तान में या केपी में या कहीं और, आप क्या समझते हैं बताएं मुझे कमेंट सेक्शन के अंदर. अपना ख्याल रखिएगा, अगली बार तक अल्लाह हाफिज़.